Yesterday, I had a meeting with all my treatment coordinators. It's a group of 10 treatment coordinators, and they struggle with work pressure. And they struggle with their own amount of work and the pressure that comes from it, but also with the experience of work pressure in the teams they work with. Staff can become a bit grumpy and irritated. So yesterday I worked with this team of treatment coordinators, and we looked into...
Welcome to Safe Space Made Simple, a practical podcast that guides clinical leaders and healthcare managers to create trust and support with their teams. I'm your host, Trace Hobson. Join me for weekly interviews, practical tools, and inspiring transformational stories of bringing people together in healthcare. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Safe Space Made Simple. Do you ever feel like you are in survival mode? Or do you ever feel like as a leader, you have voices in your head, a committee that isn't always the most positive? Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk with my co-host and colleague, Veerman, and we're going to explore some of the things that she's learning in a soul leadership program that she is delivering in Holland. Now, this program is designed for leaders who want to lead more consciously and from a place of presence and relationship rather than reaction and busyness. This is a short episode that explores some practical tips on how you can show up in your setting, no matter what the circumstances are or how busy you are or what sort of pressures you might be feeling. Now, without further ado, let's get right into the show.
It was so interesting this morning. We had a second session in a 6-session manifestation module, which is part of the soul leadership journey. And soul leadership is another word, a fancy word or a fluffy word for conscious leadership. Or I also talk about it, leadership from the inside out. And it's all about presence and being before doing. So in this soul leadership, you first work on really anchoring yourself in your own presence, in your essence identity, the deeper I, and then coming from that deeper I and the essence, stepping into the world and living your mission, your soul mission, and bringing the greatest gift you have to bring into the world. And then in this manifestation module, it's all about conscious manifestation and learning about the dance or the co-creation between what is going on inside of you and what's coming towards you and what you want and what serves the whole, and being with all of that and creating consciously. Working with what is and wants to happen.
So let me get this straight. You're teaching people how to identify the reason why they're on the planet, their soul mission.
Yeah.
And then also how to manifest in their lives in a way and in their work so that it's conscious. They're conscious of what it is they're manifesting. They're intentional. The first question that kind of jumps to mind for me is, why do you think that people have such a difficult time identifying what their mission is? So first of all, what do you notice about that? Like, why are people struggling to find their mission? And then what happens when they do?
Yeah, it's difficult because we're so caught up in doing in our lives. And we're also identifying with the story we run in our minds about who we are and our lives. And the story of our life is very much based in experiences we've had over the years and what we learned in our family and in our culture, etc. And when we fully identify with that, we're basically identified with the surface I, the personality. But there's something so much deeper to all of us than the surface identity. I call that essence identity or soul or presence or, well, any other word that resonates with you. But it's something that is not related or not dependent on the story you run in your mind over your life. It's something that is pristine. I think that's the word.
Yeah, it's pure.
It's pure.
When you are teaching people to find their soul mission, and then they find it or they begin to explore that, what is it that starts to happen naturally?
Yeah. So what's happening and what is facilitated by this program is not only connecting with this deeper I, the essence identity, your presence or whatever, by slowing down to the speed of presence or whatever you call it. But it's mostly and foremost about connecting with that layer inside yourself and then staying in connection with that essence identity, remaining in connection with it while living your life, doing your work, being in the world. So what's happening for people is that they experience more flow, more fulfillment also. And it's not that there are no challenges anymore, because they keep coming. Life offers challenges. It's part of everyone's experience in life, and they keep coming. But there's a different relationship with those challenges. They don't necessarily bring you into this state of unhappiness or something, but there's a greater resilience in people to deal with that, because they know themselves deeper than the part of them that is stirred by what's happening in their lives and in their work and etc.
So this makes me really curious, because you're a leader in an organization in healthcare. And I know that every leader that I talk to in healthcare, they've got a lot of things to get done. They've got a long task list. They go to their email inbox after coming back from holidays, and there's lots of emails to catch up on. So when you're talking about this way of leading and this way of being, I have to be a bit of the devil's advocate here and go, okay, that's great, but how do you get things done, and how is it different?
Yeah, well, my experience is that when I'm in alignment in myself and in what I tend to call dual attention, having a part of my awareness rooted in this deeper dimension while doing the things I have to do in my work as a leader or whatever, I have access to much more creativity than I have when I'm in survival mode. So I notice that I don't fall so easily into what I call survival mode, where I'm irritated and maybe angry or frustrated or in a hurry or whatever. But there's more. I mentioned it before. There's more resilience inside of me too. There's more presence. And with that presence, my brain remains in an open, creative mode.
Right.
So I don't fall in a fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Yeah, it's interesting, because what you're sharing is like what Dr. Stephen Porges would talk about with this, is that you've got this neurobiological safety inside of you that's being produced and generated. And he calls it polyvagal safety. And so, and it's based on his polyvagal theory, but he literally talks about how your brain, when you're not in a state of reaction, can access collaboration, social connection, and really dynamic solutions. But when you're in reaction mode
Yeah,
or busyness mode, your brain literally can't access that stuff. So it's really
yeah,
interesting the way that you're sharing that and how that lands. Um, and it also makes me curious about something else as well that you were talking about. Like, so all the things that come up for you that block you or distract you from your presence, for me, what I notice about that is they become the practice point. It's not about
yeah,
changing everything outside of me, or dealing with all the problems externally first. It's about going inside first and noticing those places in me that are reactive, that are resistant, that are sort of reclusive, um, or even sometimes retaliatory. And
yeah.
instead of doing that, doing something else. So that makes me curious. What do you think about that? And also, what are 3 steps that you take to be able to go to that place inside all that busyness that's around you? I just notice how my conditioned tendency is to try and fix the problems.
Yeah.
And really what you're describing is to, for me, go inside instead first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because, and that's what I do. Or if I'm not able to go inside, uh, I, I don't go into a conversation or into
Right.
doing something, if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I typically do is I check inside. Um, where I am with myself,
Mm.
and also the voice in my mind, which voice is loud and clear and is sitting in the front of the bus, and is that a helpful voice in
Right.
this conversation or in this particular circumstance? Because I know that the quality of my presence determines the quality of whatever it is that I'm doing, the
Mm.
action I'm taking. If the quality of my presence is poor when I'm, for example, irritated or in a hurry or tired or something, the quality of the action I undertake will also be uh, meager or even poor. So that's the first thing I do, checking where I am, and that determines whether I move forward with something, or I try to postpone a conversation or a meeting or something. And this is also what I teach my staff, to be aware of that. In fact,
Mhm.
yesterday I had a meeting with all my treatment coordinators. It's a group of 10 treatment coordinators. They're all leaders, not the formal leader maybe, but they're leader with regard to the treatment of the clients that we have. And they struggle with work pressure,
Mm.
and they struggle with their own amount of work and the pressure that comes from it, but also with the experience of work pressure in the teams they work with. And then staff can become a bit grumpy and irritated, or, well, what we spoke about before.
Mhm.
So yesterday I worked with this team of treatment coordinators, and we looked into the voices in our heads and whether or not they're supportive to the way we handle work pressure and the way we have a conversation with the team if they experience work pressure. And the insights, just amazing.
Mm.
And one treatment coordinator said that for her, it became clear that she had to exercise her power of choice
Mm.
more. And yeah, that's, I think, what really captures it. We all have a power of choice, and to use it means that you need awareness and self-awareness, or any awareness that is needed in a certain circumstance, and then choose what serves the situation and brings it forward. So yeah, that's also what people are learning in this soul leadership journey.
That's awesome. All right. So let's give people 3 steps that they can take. So number 1 is to check in with yourself and to see and check in on the committee in your head and see, is the committee kind today, or is the committee,
or maybe very concrete, which self or which voice is at the wheel in the bus, and your mind being the bus. Who is sitting at the wheel?
So who's driving the bus? Number 1,
exactly.
Check in with yourself and who's driving. So number 2 is what?
Decide on who is driving the bus. Whether
you get to choose.
Exactly.
You get to choose the driver.
Exercise your power of choice.
Yeah, exercise your power and your responsibility of choice. So exercise your power of choice is number 2. Okay, so you've done number 1 and you've done number 2, and now you're heading into the meeting. When you're in the meeting with whoever you're in with, what's the 3rd step that you're doing in there?
Yeah. What I am personally doing is remaining present. And that means that a part of my awareness is in my body. So I can feel and notice what is happening in my body also. So I'm interacting and working with the energy, working with what is not being said. And what is under the surface.
Right.
And
that's really practical when you think about just being able to notice your chest, and whether it's constricting or your throat or your gut, and slowing down to listening to that information so that you can hear what might be there. And then, of course, using the 3 questions that we've both been able to experience from Alan Seal's work. What wants to happen? Like, what is it? I actually translate that a little bit and say, well, what's this ache in my gut trying to tell me? And then I listen, I take a deep breath, and then it's, well, who is that asking me to be? Or who is that? What is the characteristic that wants to emerge that is in my highest and best good, and in the highest and best good of the people around me? And so that's the 2nd question. And then the 3rd question from there is, okay, what's the action step that asks me to take? What's the words that asks me to say? Maybe it asks me to just say nothing at all.
Exactly.
Maybe it's just about being still. And it might even be like to just put my hand on somebody's shoulder and say, hey, it's going to be okay. It might be, it's different every time, but those 3 questions I find really serve me in that practice that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Caroline, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for listening. I trust that this episode served you, and I look forward to meeting you either online or in our programs. And until then, remember to be a safe space.
Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I appreciate you. As an expression of my gratitude and appreciation for the work that you're doing, I've created a downloadable resource for you that is a safe space checklist. This is a checklist that you can use that will give you an immediate win by increasing your awareness of where you and your team are at right now when it comes to creating a safe space. To receive your safe space checklist, simply click the link in the show notes of this episode. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to be a safe space for yourself, the people around you, and for your life.